Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. I hope you're staying cool on this sweltering evening in Oregon and Southwest Washington. Tonight we're going to be talking about how a company is trying to make things right after a charity idea appears to have gone very wrong. Good intentions and bad outcomes. That's our big story tonight. So, how to make things right when there's a fiasco? Well, one of the things you can do is fire the person responsible for that problem. And that is exactly what's happened here. A workout studio called Orangetheory Slabtown has fired its head coach after confirming he collected thousands of dollars in charity donations and then never gave the money to the charities that were supposed to get it. Evan Watson brings us the update.
All proceeds will go directly to Maui Relief. Partnership, donation-based class, 100% of the proceeds going to Make-A-Wish.
Orangetheory Slabtown head coach Ryan Tong has been fired after his company found he collected at least $12,000 in donations from studio members and never gave that money to local charities.
Those of us that were pursuing this feel a sense of relief that he's been fired because we knew something was shady for a very long time. It feels like some amount of justice was served.
A KGW investigation found Tong collected money through his personal Venmo account, promising matching donations that weren't real.
And I'm going to see if I can find some corporate sponsors, maybe Nike, maybe Adidas.
Daniel Borgen donated during the monthly charity classes. He believes $12,000 is just the start, as it's what the company was able to verify through Venmo screenshots.
The total amount missing is probably a lot more than what's being covered, but we appreciate the gesture they made.
In May, KGW verified that at least a dozen charities never received the fitness class donations. Honors Holdings, a franchisee of Orangetheory, says it will now donate $1,000 to each nonprofit organization involved for a total of $17,000.
I think a lot of them could really use the money, so hopefully the money that they're getting will help make a difference. Hopefully we've also brought some attention to all of their causes, and hopefully folks will feel inclined to give a little more themselves.
Portland police say there's an open criminal investigation into Ryan Tong. So far, no charges have been filed. Honors Holdings says it will also reimburse studio members who showed proof of Venmo donations through credits to their Orangetheory fitness accounts. The company is still accepting new screenshots. Borgen says the lessons he and his friends learned about giving are still as relevant as ever.
Make sure you're donating directly to charities. Don't direct your donations through people's Venmo accounts. And if you think something is wrong, listen to your instincts and look into it, because you're often right.
Evan joins me now. Okay, simple question. Why no charges on this guy?
Yeah, so police are still investigating. It's an open investigation, they say, but the sense I get in asking for updates is it's not the top priority of everything they're doing with the detectives in the department. So we'll see if anything comes on the criminal side of this.
And what about this head coach? Have we heard from him?
So he's declined to answer any of my questions in the past, but I will say that the company in its statement to members today said that he had made representations or implied that he explained what happened to this money. But then when they asked, okay, what happened to the money? He never said anything, and that led to their findings today.
Interesting. All right. And what about the nonprofits? What are we hearing from them?
I've talked with a couple of leaders at the nonprofits today. We previously confirmed a dozen of which never received that money. They said this was the first they were hearing that they're going to get $1,000 donations. They seemed excited about that, but again, they've not heard anything from Honors Holdings at this point. So, of course, waiting on a notice or an email, something that we'll check up on and make sure this actually does reach that final stage.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. Good stuff. Thanks, Evan. Appreciate it. And while we're talking about updates, we have an update on our Tainted Water series from Eastern Oregon. There's a bit of action now. Our series revealed that the state of Oregon has done nothing meaningful over 30 plus years to stop the contamination of groundwater, which is also contaminating some drinking water over there. So here's the new action. First, the Oregon Health Authority is sending free test strips to 767 households in northern Morrow and Umatilla counties. The idea is to let residents test their well water to see if it's contaminated by high levels of nitrates. The strip turns pink if it is contaminated. Follow-up testing at no charge will show just how bad it is. The aquifer under a huge swath of land, 562 square miles, is contaminated by those nitrates. The chemicals were put on the land by farmers, commercial food processors, and feedlots, according to the state. The unique loamy soil allows it to drain down to the aquifer, and over the decades it certainly has. That's a problem because thousands of people use backyard wells to tap into that same aquifer for their drinking and bathing and cooking water, and when they take the water up, it brings the contamination with it. The State Health Department and others have been trying to contact everyone who lives in the contaminated area to test their well water, but no trespassing signs kept state workers out of some properties. So this past April, the state sent letters and test strips to 1,000 households, and the OHA reports that they're getting an average of 12 requests per week for that follow-up testing. Also back in May, Oregon Rural Action, which is pushing the state to stop the pollution of the aquifer and help residents, sent a letter to Governor Kotek signed by 27 different environmental organizations. The group demanded that Governor Kotek declare an emergency and take several steps, including better communication with the community, fixing the well testing program, and stopping the contamination of the groundwater. Governor Kotek did not declare an emergency, but she did respond on June 21st. She told the group that she set 6 targets for the Oregon Health Authority to hit in regards to testing of the wells. Governor Kotek also said state agencies are working with the EPA on a comprehensive plan for the near and long-term future to address the contamination. The plan is supposed to be made public later this summer. We will be watching for that. Now let's turn to the weather. Another weather impact alert day. Multnomah County reported at least 4 suspected deaths related to the heat. 3 of them were county residents, and they all were east of the Willamette River. 1 person from Clackamas County died at a local hospital. Let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino now. Matt, triple digits yesterday and again today.
Yep. And we're going to do it again tomorrow. But the good news is tomorrow is our last weather impact alert day of this stretch. So we will get relief later tomorrow night and on Wednesday. It'll be a lot cooler. But today, records were falling yet again. Vancouver hit 100, tied the record. Portland now 102, new record, breaking a record which has stood since 1952. Salem's been baking, been warmer than Portland since last week. 104, Hood River 100, and the Dow's 108. All of these are records. There will be more. We'll have the full list for you coming up, of course, at 11 o'clock tonight. Okay, some other heat streaks for you, stretching them, as a matter of fact, for Portland and Salem. Our longest stretch of days of 99 degrees or greater, and I use 99 because that's where we topped out on Friday and Saturday, is 5. We did that in July 1941 and August of 1981. You know what? We're going to tie that record tomorrow because we're easily going to beat 99 degrees tomorrow. In Salem, the record is even more intense because today, Salem, you tied the record for days of 103 or greater at 4, and tomorrow you will set a new record for days in a row that hot. So again, these are not the kind of records you want to break, but that's where we are with this heat wave, long duration heat wave that we're dealing with. Something else that has been lost in all the heat talk and coverage is the air quality. And you can see it's hazy out there. You can see Mount Hood, but it's hazy in Portland right now. And yes, we're still at 101 degrees. So because of that haze, it is pollution. The environmental agencies like DEQ, Southwest Washington, and down in Lane County have issued air quality alerts, which continue until 8 o'clock tomorrow night for the entire Willamette Valley and the Cascade foothills here. Then also over in the Pendleton area, an air quality alert as well. The pollution that we're dealing with is something we don't often have to deal with here in Oregon. It's ozone. Now, this is from the European Space Agency showing a map of upper level ozone, and that's where it gets confusing because there's 2 different kinds of ozone. Well, it's the same ozone, but it's location, location, location. Location high up in the stratosphere, that's good ozone. Remember the ozone hole back in the 80s? And that was a problem because there was not enough ozone. Well, that's been fixed. We'll talk about that. But then ozone down low in the troposphere where we breathe the air is not good. Here's another way of looking at it. High level ozone, green thumbs up, that's great. It blocks the UV radiation from the sun. Ground level ozone, though, is what we're dealing with, and that's not good because it causes respiratory issues, anybody with lung problems. It's just a really nasty pollution, and the way it forms is this. You need hot days and sunny days like this. That combines with nitrogen oxide, other volatile organic compounds, and that creates ozone. This is what happens in Los Angeles a lot. That's what creates the smog down there because they have so many hot, sunny days. So, Pat, that's what we're dealing with right now.
All right, but here's my question. Yep. The wind has been blowing. Why is there still ozone everywhere?
Well, if you're just blowing ozone from one location to the next, then you're not cleaning things up. Yes, we have a little bit of a breeze this afternoon, which feels good, right? But we're not changing out our air mass at all. We've been living under this dome of very warm air since last week. So everything we put into it, all of the pollution from our cars, our trucks, our factories, our homes, is just sitting there. And now, because it's so hot, it's able to combine and chemically react with the hot weather in the air, or with the hot temperatures and the sunlight, to create ground level ozone, which is a pollution. So that's why this is a problem, one that we don't have to deal with that much in Portland, because we usually don't get stretches of hot sunny days like Los Angeles or Phoenix the way we are right now. One final note for you, Pat, on the heating that we're dealing with here. Every single line here is a year, okay, in time. And you can see the decades on the right-hand side here. And this is the base, and these are temperature graphs. So from June of last year through May of this year, we're way above all of the other years in terms of the global surface temperature, and we're likely going to end 2024 with, yet again, the hottest year on record. Pat?
Wow. Fascinating stuff, Matt. I always learn stuff from you. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, moving on. Because of the heat, the city of Portland has paused all homeless camp removals as well as enforcement of its camping ban, though it's not clear if enforcement of the ban even started last week, as the mayor told me that it would. Today, Blair Best hit the streets for a glimpse of how people there are enduring this heat.
You may not see it, but you can sure smell it.
It's disgusting. It is so gross every corner that you turn.
The result of 5 days of extreme temps in Old Town.
It's stagnant. It just stays. You know, it's like it feels like sometimes a cesspool of nothing.
Amelia's face damaged from a fight fueled by the heat, she says.
Every time the weather gets a little bit worse, people get a little bit hotter, you know what I mean? Their temperatures, their attitude. And
it's exhausting.
It is hot, and there's just so many people that are struggling. It gets really hot in a tent. They barely have any ventilation.
We found many abandoned tents Monday as people turned to day centers like Rosehaven.
We're going to stay open until 4 o'clock today as a cooling center.
In the meantime, those tents aren't going anywhere. The city of Portland paused camp removals and enforcement of its camping ban that threatens jail time and fines due to the severe weather emergency declared last week.
Wow. Holy Christ. I did not know that.
It should probably be the opposite. If you think, like, if there's, I mean, they should probably find shelters for them.
I think it's probably a bit performative.
The mayor's office would not talk with KGW on camera, but said this is all part of the city's camp removal policy. But in this statement to KGW, Portland City Commissioner and mayoral candidate Mingus Mapps urges people to stay out of the sun as much as possible, given the heat-related deaths this weekend.
So regardless of what happens at City Hall and when these kind of proclamations are made, it doesn't really affect people on the streets that much. The word is on the street that you're going to be swept, you got to stay on the move, that you're not welcome. And so once people know that is the culture. And so people are not only hot and uncomfortable, they're scared.
This is the worst and hardest thing I've ever done in my whole entire life.
Now, the city has paused camp removals in the past during severe weather events, and instead those crews have handed out water and encouraged people to go into shelter. Now, it's unclear if that piece is happening this week. Pat?
All right, Blair, and I know that the city has worked out a series of steps. There's 4 or 5 steps, the protocols they're calling them, before they can send police out there to kind of confront the homeless campers. But what about that very end piece, the enforcement piece? What do we know about that?
Well, you know, Pat, despite efforts to talk with police about this, it's still pretty unclear as to what that enforcement piece will look like. But we are learning that jail time for someone who refuses the offer of shelter is not likely. But again, these enforcement efforts and camp removals are all on pause until this heat wave passes. Pat?
All right, Blair, thanks for the update. Appreciate you being out on the streets and working it again. Take care. All right, coming up next on the story. In order to apply for a professional license in the state of Washington, you need a social security number. Think of dental hygienists, even plumbers. But a new Washington state law opens the door for undocumented immigrants to apply for those very same licenses. We'll explain when the story returns. Earlier this month, a new law took effect in Washington state, allowing undocumented immigrants to apply for professional licenses. Now, lots of professions require these things, from massage therapists to hair school or hair cutters. I guess that'd be barber and hairstylists. Also plumbers, electricians, that sort of thing. You get the idea. The thought is that a license means they know what they're doing. Before this law, people needed to provide their Social Security number. But now all they need is a taxpayer identification number through the IRS. Sharon Yu from our sister station in Seattle shows us how the law grew from an idea to reality.
These 4 women are feeling a new sense of certainty today.
Social worker.
Maria M. As a new law allows them to apply for professional licenses without social security numbers. They're a part of the Communities for Our Colleges Coalition, a group of advocates who fought for this new law.
I wasn't sure if I should go along with dental hygienist because I wasn't sure if at the end of the tunnel, I was going to be able to even do the career.
Prior to the passing of House Bill 1889, career paths, including real estate agents, home inspectors to athletic trainers and music therapists, were closed off to undocumented immigrants without social security numbers. Jobs like private investigators and notary publics were also reserved only for United States citizens or lawful residents. Now with HB 1889 becoming law, students like Maria Barrios can continue pursuing her future.
It has given me the ability to push myself to be able to become a dental hygienist at the end, and also tell other people that are undocumented students to not give up on their dreams and continue, because things do change.
Why should folks who are undocumented have this opportunity?
Mostly because we're individuals that, are contributing to this country and specifically to Washington's economy.
Adding more folks to Washington's workforce was a big inspiration for Democratic Representative Amy Wallen to chief sponsor the bill. She represents Kirkland, Bellevue, Redmond, and surrounding areas.
It was an important bill for my district because we're very diverse. The 48th Legislative District has a lot of immigrants working in the tech community, but many of their family members are very qualified to do all kinds of things in their home countries, and to have them be able to participate in the economy is exciting to me.
The law also makes it illegal for state licensing agencies to disclose Social Security or taxpayer identity numbers, further protecting those without immigration status.
It's always been that fear of what happens if the worst, but it's definitely a fear I've always have and still have to this day. But obviously, putting that aside, I know I still need to fight for my dreams and make the sacrifices that my parents did, worth it.
That's Sharon Yu reporting. People can apply for a taxpayer identification number through the IRS, which has detailed instructions on its website. And it's important to note that this law only changed the application process in Washington state only, allowing undocumented folks to apply. The individual state boards and agencies that license people in those various fields of work still need to review and approve those applications. So it's not a complete free-for-all on licenses. People still need to meet requirements to prove that they're able to do those jobs. Still to come on the story, we're digging for old and making quite the connection between our current heat wave, an old bag, and the famous white stag sign in Portland. Ah, yes, there's a line through it all. It's coming up next when the story returns. We're coming up on that great time of year, the KGW School Supply Drive. It's going to start in just a few weeks. Last year we collected school supplies for more than 15,000 kids, and we want to do even more this year. Here's where you come in. Go to kgw.com/school, sign up your organization, and we'll send you a collection kit so you can help collect school supplies for your school district. That's kgw.com/school. On this week's Digging for Old, we wanted to try and find some items related to the heat that we're all experiencing across the region. And as this segment often goes, you know, one thing led to another and another and another, and then we stumbled on some gee whiz facts from the past that we had to bring all of it to you. We started by searching the Oregon Historical Society's museum collection for the word cooling, which I'm sure many of you are doing right now. We only found 7 results, but the second one caught our eye. It described as bag, water. What? Here's a closer look. It's a canvas water bag with a rubberized inside to hold the water. A metal binding closes at the top, and you can see the sprout plugged with a cork there on the left. The Historical Society dates the bag back to 1920 and 1935. As you can see, it was made by the Hirsch Weiss Manufacturing Company in Portland, created by Max and Leopold Hirsch and their partner, Harry Weiss. Some of you may recognize the leaping stag above the apple. See it there in the middle? Yep. The company specialized in clothing and supplies for outdoor workers, and a water bag makes sense for that. But in 1931, the company began making ski clothing and named the brand White Stag. Where does the name come from? Well, it's simply the English translation of the German names of the owners. Weiss is German for white. You say it by making the W sound like a V, so Weiss. And Hirsch is German for stag. In the 1950s, which is when this picture was taken, Hirsch Weiss Manufacturing was the country's largest retailer of ski clothing. And when the company went public in 1956, it was renamed White Stag Sportswear. How about that? So how does it connect to this iconic White Stag in Portland? Well, before the stag, the sign was built in 1940 to promote an Oregon sugar company. By 1957, as sales soared, White Stag put its own brand there with the deer. And it was Harold Hirsch's wife, Elizabeth, who suggested the red nose be added around Christmas time. The Nadeau family, think Nadeau Parkway, well, they bought the building where the sign stands in the early 70s, and the city designated the sign as a historic landmark in the late 70s. In the late 90s, the wording was changed to a slogan linking it to a Nadeau business brand, Made in Oregon. But since the city of Portland took possession of the sign in 2010, it has simply read Portland, Oregon, Old Town, with the iconic White Stag welcoming people near and far to our city. By the way, the White Stag brand was sold in the mid-1960s, went through a few changes in the 80s, and was eventually sold to Walmart in 2003 for about $29 million. They turned that brand into a line of women's apparel and jewelry. And now you know. That's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. But remember, the story, our collective story, well, that never ends. An Oregon History Maker special is coming up next, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30. In the meantime, we'll take a look at the director's booth and then maybe a tour of Skycams. Have a good night.